Good day, everyone. My name is Veronica Carlson, and I will be your host for this session. I'd like to welcome you to today's World of Fiery webinar. Before we begin our presentation, we invite you to participate on a short poll related to variable data printing. You can see the polling panel on your right. Select Submit after answering your questions, and you'll see how your answers compare to the rest of the audience, and we'll refer to the poll results during the presentation. Let's quickly go through some housekeeping items. All participants on the teleconference have been muted. If you have any questions during the webinar, please submit those via the chat window or the Q&A window. We'll have time to go through questions at the end of our presentation, and we'll do our best to answer as many questions as time permits. If we are unable to get to your question, we'll make sure we'll send that answer later via email. We are also recording today's session. A link to this recording will be sent to you within a few days, so you can listen again or share with colleagues who were unable to join it live. And last but not least, we'll be posting a survey at the end of the session so we can collect your feedback to improve future sessions. So please don't forget to participate on the survey and send us your feedback. Today's session is Easy VDP with FreeForm Create. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, Giselle de la Molinière, Product Marketing Manager, and Hans Stepp, Product Manager. So let's get started. Giselle, please take it away.
Thanks, Vero. Hi, everyone. Hans and I are very excited to talk to you today about VDP and our brand new Fiery FreeForm Create application. Here's what we're going to cover today. For those of you not currently doing VDP today, we'll explain what it is and why it's something that you should offer your customers. Then we'll tell you about FreeForm Create and the 2 different workflows that you can use. Next, we'll explain how to get FreeForm Create and the different ways it can be used for print service providers and implants, as well as how designers and creatives can use it. And finally, we'll go through our extensive list of resources. So what is VDP? VDP, or variable data printing, is any printed piece that is customized in some way for the intended recipient. Sometimes the printed piece is a standalone piece. Sometimes it is a component of a larger marketing campaign, which may contain other types of communication, such as email. But for this session today, we're going to focus on the printed piece. Here's an example of a personalized postcard. You can see that the recipient's name and address is on it, plus the content is customized depending on the criteria or the category that the recipient falls into. A recent study from Keypoint Intelligence indicated that in the U.S., an average of 22.4% of the total jobs produced at customer sites involved variable data content, with expectations for this to grow to 30% within 2 years. This shows that there is a tremendous opportunity for customers to add variable data capabilities, but many are hesitant due to cost of investment, lack of perceived technical knowledge, or a lack of understanding of data skills. We'll talk more about how we can help overcome these objections later in the session. VDP helps your customers create more effective campaigns. Personalized, data-driven marketing materials drive higher response rates with more relevant information. In this slide, you can see that the response rate for a static, non-personalized mail piece is around 2%. But when that mail piece is personalized, the response rate increases threefold to 6%. So you can help your customers be 3 times more effective with their marketing campaigns. In addition, think about how physical mail is perceived via email. I'm sure you've got a big spam folder in your email and you rarely go in and look at it, right? I know that's the case with my Outlook, but with physical mail, you generally at least glance at it before it goes in the trash. And if it's personalized, it's more likely to catch your attention, which could be the difference between the trash can and your counter. Don't you want your customers to also have that opportunity to catch their audience's attention? There are also benefits to you, the print service provider, for offering VDP. Personalized print justifies a higher per-piece cost for printed materials based on higher response rates and return on investment as seen in the statistics that I showed you on the previous slide. This helps you as the print service provider build a loyal customer base that comes back again and again and thus drives more business. This helps your customers more directly target their desired audiences, which then leads to higher response rates, producing happy customers that will want to come back to you again and again for future VDP projects.
So in the previous slide, Giselle explained the benefits and opportunity of VDP, but when we talk to customers and print shop owners, we still hear and read about a lot about objections that they have about getting started with variable data printing. As you go and read the objections on the slide, we do understand that up till now, there was a moderate investment required to get started with VDP jobs that go beyond simple addressing, for instance. Also, for some VDP solutions, the learning curve is steep and print shop owners don't know how to justify the investment in time, money, and resources. During previous webinars we hosted, we have shared a multitude of resources on how to get started with the tools you might already have. We've shared best practices, and we've had print shop owners explain how they get started with VDP and became very successful in growing their business because of that. With the VDP solution that we will introduce in a moment, we try to keep everything as simple as possible while still providing advanced features you find in otherwise paid solutions. But before that, as a refresher, let's go over the different things you need to get started with VDP. First thing you need is an idea or message that you or your customer wants to get across. That idea or message needs to be tied to a goal. Ideally, you want to be able to measure that goal to prove that VDP is worth the extra time and investment for you and your customers. One of the key points of advice we can give you is that you, as the print shop owner, you brainstorm with your team how you want to use VDP to market yourself to your customers. Again, we've gone in great detail on how to avoid pitfalls and shared best practices in one of our previous sessions. Second, to create a variable data job, you need, well, data. The data can be something very simple as an Excel sheet or a comma-separated values file, or can be something an extensive set of data that has been cleaned and enriched by third-party providers. Again, we will share links to webinars where we explain this at length. Third, you need a design application to create the layout you want to personalize, just like you would create any other printed piece. This application can be something like Word, and yes, we do know about customers who even use PowerPoint for this, but most customers use Adobe InDesign or similar products. And in a few moments, we will introduce a new free way to take those templates and add variable information in a quick and easy manner. Personalization is perfectly suited for digital printing where every printed page can be different. So the last thing you need is the right DFE, which is a Fiery, of course, and a printer. All of this and more is covered in a checklist that will help you determine everything you need for a variable data project. We will share a link to these resources at the end of this presentation. So let's get started. We're proud to announce a brand new application free of charge to all Fiery users and their customers. And we call it Fiery FreeForm Create. Fiery FreeForm Create is a free standalone application that uses our Fiery FreeForm technology to create variable data documents, and it's available for Mac and Windows. Fiery FreeForm Create allows you to add personalization to your existing documents. You can add variable text, images, and or barcodes, all free of charge. Fiery FreeForm Create greatly simplifies and minimizes the steps needed to send and configure these personalized documents to the Fiery. Fiery FreeForm Create was developed based on feedback and discussions with you, the customer, indicating that there was a need for a really simple way to do variable data. We use existing Fiery VDP technology that has been around for many years and is standard on basically every single Fiery server that exists today. The concept of Fiery FreeForm is to merge a single master document with a document that has the variable information. The Fiery processes the master document once and then applies the master to each variable record. This is a simple but extremely effective way to process variable data documents. It is significantly faster and less error-prone than using mail merge functions in Microsoft Word or Adobe InDesign. Fiery FreeForm Create does all the hard work and takes care of sending the master document and the variable information to the Fiery and configure both documents automatically. This greatly simplifies and reduces the number of steps needed to use Fiery FreeForm. Fiery FreeForm Create is not limited to a specific type of variable document. You can use Fiery FreeForm Create from anything as simple as a newsletter to a complicated postcard that has addressing, variable images, and a QR code. The samples you see on this slide are available as embedded sample files in Fiery FreeForm Create. We've also made these templates available on EFI.com as part of the brand new Fiery FreeForm Kit, so you can download and change them to fit your need.
Thanks, Hans. There are two different workflows that you can use in Fiery FreeForm Create. The first one that we're going to talk about is the variable data workflow. The variable data workflow is the simplest path to getting started with VDP today, and this is brand new functionality compared to the existing FreeForm technology. It's a simple drag and drop interface, and it's designed to be easily navigated by anyone that's familiar with Microsoft Word or Adobe InDesign. Not only can you drag and drop variable text onto existing documents, you can also insert variable images and barcodes too, and we'll show you how easy that is. All you need to get started is two things, a master PDF and a data source file. The master PDF can be created in any design application that, one, you're comfortable using, and two, can output to PDF. Examples, as we mentioned previously, are Microsoft Word and Adobe InDesign. For the data source, it's simply a spreadsheet that contains your data. It can be created in Excel as an XLS or an XLSX file, or output from any database program into a CSV. So now let's show you a live demo of a simple application in FreeForm Create using variable text. So the first thing that we do is we select our master document, and then we select our data source. So I'll pause it here for a second. So FreeForm Create will look at your data source, and it will look at all your different columns and see what the column headers are. These essentially turn into your variable fields. So these names are what you'll use to drag and drop the variable fields onto your master document. And so you see everything here is noted as text, and then you hit Create, and then your master document appears on the screen. And from here, you're literally dragging and dropping your fields to their desired placement on your master. You can change many of the attributes of your variable text fields. You can change the font size, you can change the font style, you can resize the text box because you want to make sure that you've got enough room for your entire field to be here. You can center the text, and there's other alignment features, again, very similar to what you'd find in other design applications. And then to add more fields, you simply just keep dragging and dropping. And you can, again, adjust the alignment, adjust the placement. That's the beauty of a visual interface, is that you can see what you're doing, and if you don't like it, you can adjust how it looks very easily. And so now what we're going to do is we just update the font a little bit because we want the name to be a bit larger. And then we are going to just align all of these fields to center. So then once we've got all that straightened out and how we want it, we actually get a live visual preview of our variable document. And you can see we're looking at the different variable fields, and we can scroll through the different records to make sure everything's right. So now we're going to look at our first name field. We're just going to flip through a couple of these records. And we have filters that we can use to actually look at the longest and shortest records. In this case, we're looking at the longest last name. So what this means is we can make sure our text box has enough room to accommodate all of the space required for these fields. And again, we can look at middle names because some people have full middle names, middle initials, no middle name. So we want to make sure that everything is showing the way that we want it to. And it looks like it is. And then we can move on. Sorry about that. There we go. So that was a simple application where we were simply using variable data text. Now what we're going to do is we're going to show you a more complex application where we're not only using variable text, but we're going to use variable text, images, and barcodes. So again, the documents start the same way. We choose our master PDF, and we choose our data source. So I'm going to pause here for a second because looking at our data source, as I mentioned, we have many types of variable objects. We've got text, we've got images, and we've got barcodes. So again, FreeForm Create will look at the data source, and it will see the types of variable objects that are contained within. In this view right now, you can see that we've all got everything as a text because you see this little A here that indicates it's a text field. But if we scroll down just a little bit here, you can see we're getting some different fields. So here, if we keep scrolling, sorry about that, accidentally started it over. Just go through here again. So we're looking at all the fields. These are all text fields. And then when we get to the end, we can see that we have got variable images. As you see, this little image is selected here. And we also have a QR code. So we've got our data source, and there's some key things in this data source that help it determine what the images are. So I'm showing you, this is our spreadsheet right here. It's our data source. This is the folder. And so when we look at this, back here, we're looking at our pictures folder. So let me back up just a little bit. Sorry about that. There we go. Okay, so when we look at our spreadsheet here, you can see that these columns here, there's some different things in them than what you would see in a typical spreadsheet. You've got this sort of tilde and a slash in pictures, and then prop interior. What you're actually looking at is the prop interior variable field contains images that are in this main pictures folder. And then for each individual record, you're seeing that an individual image is called out for each one. So you see here home in, condo in, these are individual images that are being referenced in this spreadsheet. And then when we go forward, you can see that our data source is at the same level as our subfolder pictures, which we called out in our spreadsheet. And then when I open the pictures folder, you can see that these are all the images that you see referenced within the spreadsheet. So we go back, and then now we're in our master. And so again, just like with variable text, we start dragging and dropping our images onto our master. And again, it's all visual. So you can resize and you can adjust the placement if you're not entirely happy with how everything is going. So we can resize, adjust, move it the way we want it. And then once we've got the images the way we want them, we start dragging and dropping text fields. And just like with our other example, we can show, we can change the font size, we can change the font type, we can change the color even. And, you know, we can change bold, you know, again, visual, so we're changing things on demand, on the fly. And we are dragging and dropping more text fields, and then we're going to align these the way we want them to go and change the font. So again, this is all very simple. The interface, as you can tell, is similar to what you'd use in Word or InDesign, so it's very intuitive with not much of a learning curve to get started. So once we get all of these fields in, we're going to do an alignment on these fields to make sure they're all left aligned. And just do some final little adjustments here. And then adjust the spacing, because you can adjust the spacing proportionally to a selection. And then here, we're actually color. So you can add preset colors in InDesign, which is in FreeForm Create, which is great. So now we just make a couple final adjustments to the text fields here, making that one italic. And again, doing the alignment. And then we'll flip over to the back because here we're actually going to add a QR code. So we have 159 different types of barcodes that are embedded within FreeForm Create. For this example, we're going to choose a QR code. And something else great that we're going to do here is we have the ability to add a custom static text field in FreeForm Create. So if you get into making your personalized application and you realize there's one more field that you forgot to add in your master, you can add it right here in FreeForm Create and not have to go back to the design application. So you can also see here we went to a different record and we've got different variable images. So you can scroll through each individual record to see variable images, text, and barcodes just like you would a standard text file.
Thank you, Giselle. Actually, as Giselle mentioned, Fiery FreeForm Create supports over 159 to be exact, different barcode types. Important to know is that no additional fonts need to be installed and that Fiery FreeForm Create supports these barcodes natively. For our US audience, often use barcodes like IMB or intelligent USPS intelligent mail barcodes are also supported, both for the formatted content and the unformatted content. People who work with IMB barcodes know what I'm talking about. If one uses third-party applications like AccuZip, Fiery FreeForm Create is also able to consume the output of that application. To use barcodes, you need to include the content for that barcode in the data source. Please know that Fiery FreeForm Create will check if the formatting and content of a specific barcode is valid content for that barcode. This to avoid generating variable data jobs that cannot be scanned by barcode readers due to invalid content. Barcodes can also be resized so to match the look and feel of the existing layout.
Thanks, Hans. So as you saw in the video of the postcard, it's pretty simple to add personalized images. All you need is to be able to put your images into your data source and to organize the folder structure to allow FreeForm Create to find them. A few best practices when working with images. Use the accelerators, or these little codes that we put before the folder name and the image name in your spreadsheet to indicate to FreeForm Create where to find the images. Unlike with barcodes, the accelerators are required in the data source to be able to use variable images. Put your images in a separate folder that's at the same level as your data source. In my example, you can see that my pictures folder is at the same level as my data source, real estate postcard data source.xlsx. Another tip is to make sure your images are properly sized to the right size as they'll appear when you add them to your master. A good tip is to do a quick test layout in your master in your design program to make sure you know the final size for your images. And this goes without saying, but ensure your images are high resolution and suitable for printing.
Thanks. As we mentioned, Fiery FreeForm Create supports two types of workflows. Giselle has explained the data merge workflow. I would like to explain the file merge workflow.
Actually, I explained the variable data workflow.
The variable data workflow, yes. Next slide, please. Thank you. The file merge workflow in Fiery FreeForm Create is best explained as a what you see is what you get method for customers that already use Fiery FreeForm today. You can visually check if the page mapping of variable pages is correct. We've shared the benefit of using Fiery FreeForm previously in previous slides and during previous webinars. As explained before with Fiery FreeForm, the Fiery does all the heavy lifting. Significant performance improvements are gained by processing the master document once and then applying the master to the variable document. FreeForm Create allows you to do this visually instead of using the, to be fair, slightly outdated interface in Fiery job properties. We think that everyone who's using FreeForm already or enhanced will really like doing the same with FreeForm Create.
And Hans, as we saw in the poll, over 30% of our respondents are already using our legacy FreeForm workflow.
Oh,
so you will especially enjoy this section of our presentation.
Thank you. So in the next demo, I will show you how to open the master PDF and variable PDF in FreeForm Create. Typically, you would submit both these documents to Command Workstation or print them using the print driver. We will then show you how to delete unused pages in the master document, something that you would use Enhanced FreeForm for in Command Workstation, and then map the variable document to the correct page. And we can then preview the end results without having to process the files before we send it to the Fiery. Thank you. If you can start. So opening the master document, just like you would for the data merge workflow, but instead of opening an Excel sheet, I'm actually opening a pre-formatted variable document that has all the variable content. This is a 6-page document. We only need 4 pages for this particular segment of the data, so I select the pages that I do not want. I can then look at the document. Are these the 4 pages that we need? I can set the number of pages per record. I can add a blank page if I need to. Or lastly, I can simply, by drag and drop, add the variable content, map the variable content to the correct page. And by selecting preview and navigating the different records and pages, I can double check whether what the output would be if I would process this and print this through a Fiery. Thank you. Just so we're clear, we're not removing Fiery FreeForm from a Command Workstation or the print driver. Customers who want to continue to use FreeForm and or Enhanced FreeForm can still use the print driver or Command Workstation, or both. We would like those customers to download and install Fiery FreeForm Create to check how much time they can save configuring these jobs with FreeForm Create.
Thanks, Hans. So we've showed you how Fiery FreeForm Create works. So now let's talk about how you can get started and the best ways to use the applications. The first thing that you need to do, of course, is download the application. And there's 2 ways to get FreeForm Create. The first one is to install via Fiery Software Manager. If you already use Fiery Command Workstation, you've already got Fiery Software Manager, or FSM, as we refer to it. This is the best way to get FreeForm Create because you'll be notified when there is an updated version of the application, and it's a very easy install. However, we know not everyone has or needs Command Workstation, or you may not even have access to a Fiery server. In these instances, we've provided a standalone download of FreeForm Create. Both can be accessed at the main FreeForm Create page, which is www.efi.com/freeformcreate. We also encourage you to check the system requirements on the FreeForm Create page. It works with all external and embedded servers running Fiery System 10 or newer software, so pretty much all Fiery servers sold since late 2011. So you've got the application installed and you've created your personalized file. If you're a print service provider or an in-plant, your next step is to submit your file to your Fiery-driven printer for production. You can apply server presets and use with Fiery make-ready software such as Impose, Compose, or JobMaster. So here's a quick demo of those steps. In this example, we've created a business card. So the first thing that we do is we save our file from FreeForm Create, and we're saving it as an FFP, which is the proprietary FreeForm Create format. And I'll come back to why that's important in just a minute. Once we've saved it, we can submit it right to our Fiery server. And you see this window pop up, and I will pause here for just a second. Oh, now I'll keep going. Basically, you can choose which queue to send it to, held queue, print and hold. Then you see the Fiery go through all of the process to get the file there, and then you see your file appear in Fiery Command Workstation. From here, you can treat it just like any other job. In this instance, I'm actually going to impose my business card using Fiery Impose. I'm going to do a cut and stack layout because this is, and it's a demo file, so I only have a few records, which means I'm going to use an 8.5 by 11 sheet for this example. And just like any other variable data file on the Fiery, you can see a visual preview of individual records in Impose. Once everything's set up, you save it into Command Workstation, and again, just like any other job that you would impose, you see your .dbp file right in Command Workstation. So very simple to use and nothing new to learn when using FreeForm Create compared to how you're sending jobs to the Fiery today. So one of the best features about FreeForm Create is that you don't need access to a Fiery server to use it, and yes, you heard me correctly. As you saw in the previous demo, you save your personalized files in the proprietary FreeForm Create file format, or FFP. These packages contain all the master and variable information, even including images. Those FFP files can be opened on any FreeForm Create client, and all the variable elements in the mapping will be saved. So a graphic designer can be empowered to create a personalized file, save it as an FFP, and then send it to their print service provider, who can then in turn open it in their FreeForm Create client and then send it to their Fiery-driven printer for production. This is also great for in-plants, who have many different departments who send files to them for printing. The departments can download the FreeForm Create client and then send the FFP to the in-plant for production. So now let's go through our extensive list of resources we have available for FreeForm Create. Our FreeForm Create page is our main resource for information. As we mentioned before, this is where you can go download the application if you choose to use the standalone version. We've also got an Applications tab where we provide how-to videos from more than 10 sample applications. Speaking of sample applications, we've included a host of pre-programmed application examples right within the Fiery FreeForm Create application. These aren't intended for printing necessarily, but they're intended to illustrate examples of how files can be programmed. We've got examples for both the variable data and file merge workflows, and all include all the master and variable information. You can find these in the main window of FreeForm Create under the Application Examples menu, and you may need to expand this menu to show these applications. As Hans mentioned, not only do we give you pre-programmed examples, we give you the native files too. Our brand new, completely redesigned FreeForm kit contains source files for all of the sample applications embedded in the FreeForm Create application, plus a few more bonus samples. In fact, you'll find the native files for everything we've shown in our demos today in the FreeForm kit. In addition to all the files, FFPs, and how-to videos, it contains an extensive overview guide that explains how all the examples were created, plus provides tips and tricks for the different workflows and working with the different types of variable elements. You can find the FreeForm kit linked from within the FreeForm Create application and on the FreeForm Create page. If you'd like to go more in depth about FreeForm Create, you can take our free e-learning course on learning at EFI. Printelligence, an industry consulting firm, produced an independent product briefing on FreeForm Create. One of the best parts is where the consultant, who doesn't have any design or VDP experience, creates his own personalized postcard using PowerPoint, Excel, and FreeForm Create, and it's definitely worth a watch. We encourage you to join the conversation in EFI communities. The FreeForm Create group is quite active, and it's a great opportunity to ask questions, get tips, and see what your peers are doing. You'll find Hans and I chiming in on many of the conversations as well. EFI Communities is free to join and to read posts, but if you'd like to comment or ask a question, registration is required. As Hans mentioned, he and I have presented 3 other World of Fiery webinars in the past. All cover various topics related to VDP, and while none of them cover FreeForm Create because they predate FreeForm Create, there's still a wealth of good information on VDP. In particular, we encourage you to check out Recipe for VDP, which offers a lot of insight into what's needed to plan a variable data campaign and all of the different stages in the planning process, plus tips on how to format your data and other useful information. Also, as Hans mentioned earlier, our VDP checklist is a resource whether you're using our legacy FreeForm workflow, FreeForm Create, or another VDP tool. This checklist helps ensure that you've got all the right components in place for a successful VDP campaign.
Phew. Thanks, Giselle. Maybe before we I would like to share my final thoughts. We can go over the poll results, Veronica. So thank you all for who have responded to the poll. To the first question, do you offer variable data printing? Almost 70% says yes. Still 20+% of the attendees respond by saying no. So again, to those people, there's still a tremendous opportunity to tip your toes into variable data, and it's now becoming much easier with FreeForm Create. As to the question, what variable data format or language is used, we see usage of PPML, PDF-VT. Majority of our attendees, unless something is, when we scroll down, uses Fiery FreeForm, so that's encouraging. And we also see that 6% of the attendees use Fiery FreeForm Create, which is extremely encouraging. We also see that the second most used format is a flattened PDF. So to those attendees, I would like to say, hey, please check out Fiery FreeForm Create because you will see a significant improvement by switching from flattened PDFs to Fiery FreeForm Create. Not offering variable data is some people don't know how to sell it. Again, I would like to refer to the previous webinars we've done where we also get customer insight in how to sell variable data, unsure about the data aspect, etc. Is there anything else? Okay, so again, with regards to the data aspect, check out our previous webinars to get some additional insights. And we see that there's a nice distribution of print for pay, in-plant, and in-house printing attendees that are currently listening and watching this webinar. So thank you all for providing your feedback.
And then one thing also I'd like to point out, Hans, about the poll is that we see there's a pretty big number of our Fiery reseller partners that are listening to this. So hopefully with everything you've learned today, you can go back and communicate the benefits of using Fiery FreeForm Create to your customers to help understand how this can help them be more effective with VDP.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, so some final thoughts. Before I continue, before I share my final thoughts, I just would like to share a quick anecdote that happened as we were testing the alpha and beta versions of FreeForm Create and developing these new samples. Is that last summer my wife sent me a PDF and says, hey, can you print this? She is a host at the Girl Scout summer camp. The PDF has all the songs that they sing during the summer camp. And I was like, sure, but then immediately realized, like, can you provide a list of the girls that are in your group? And she sent me the email. She shared the, and within literally under a minute, I had personalized this PDF. And when she gave these songbooks to the children, they were ecstatic that they each had their own songbook with their name on the front page. I think that shows the power of FreeForm Create, because before FreeForm Create, I actually had to open the PDF either in Acrobat, use a plugin, or open the PDF in InDesign and having to go through, and it's just too much effort for the intended purpose. So Fiery FreeForm Create gives you easier access to getting these types of simple documents personalized, but also gives you access to more advanced features like barcodes and variable images. I think it's not on par, but simpler and easier to use than using InDesign and Word. And one of the key benefits of using FreeForm is, as Giselle has mentioned, through our FreeForm package format, you can actually exchange variable documents in a very easy way without having to worry if resources have been added or have been added to the set of resources that you send to either your customer or to your print server provider. Lastly, what I would like to share is take advantage of all our resources, and by all means do join our EFI communities and check out the Fiery FreeForm Create community. There's a very active discussion there. People share best practices. People also share, hey, I would like to, it would be great if FreeForm Create would support this, or I can't make barcodes work. I have AccuZip and I'm trying to use that. So me and Giselle and sometimes the team, the development team chime in and say, you have to go through these steps, and we'll also share how-tos. Where tomorrow, as things all go to plan, we'll release an update to FreeForm Create that allows you to resize barcodes and addresses some of the errors reported through communities and through support. And then later this year, we will release version 1.1 of FreeForm Create, which will address many of the feature requests that, again, have been shared through EFI communities. So please share, join us at EFI communities to have an ongoing discussion and making FreeForm Create even better than it already is. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Good. We will start our Q&A section of the webinar. So I'll give you guys a few seconds to submit your questions to the Q&A window on your right. And we do have actually many questions to answer.
Great.
So let's start. So just so you guys know, we will be sharing this presentation along with the recording in a follow-up email. We'll send you all to everyone who register via email.
And this presentation will contain all of the links that we talked about to additional resources, so you'll be able to have access to all of those as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And just one question. So last week we did a World of Fiery webinar on Fiery Command Workstation 6.4, and we also talked a little bit about FreeForm Create. We did get one question regarding FreeForm Create that I want to bring up here for this audience. And the question came from someone who was already using FreeForm Create, but they were unable to send their file from FreeForm Create to their Fiery server. And there's a couple different reasons why that might have been the case. The first one might have been that they may not have Fiery API installed on the Fiery server that they're trying to send it to, and that's a requirement. The second thing may be because they may not have had a password set on their Fiery server. And while Fiery Server and the Fiery Command Workstation do allow you to have a blank password for, I believe, administrator or some of the other fields, FreeForm Create requires a password to be able to connect to the Fiery server. So a very important tip is if you want to send files from FreeForm Create to a Fiery server, you need to make sure that you have a password on your Fiery server.
Yes, and I think having a password on the Fiery server is a good idea in the first place. Also, with regards to Fiery API, so if FreeForm Create tries to send a job to a Fiery that does not have Fiery API installed, it will pop up an error message and saying, hey, you need to install Fiery API, and it has a link to a how-to on how to install Fiery API. Fiery API can be installed through Command Workstation. There's also an extensive FAQ on EFI communities that explains how to install Fiery API on a Fiery.
Okay.
All right. So we have a lot of questions, which is great. On the Fiery side, is there any difference between using an embedded controller versus an external controller in conjunction with FreeForm Create? No, the capabilities are exactly the same between external and embedded controllers with FreeForm Create, which is great, and we wanted to make it available to the most number of our customers as we could, so we did that purposefully.
I think the only difference that would be because obviously embedded Firebase are versus external Firebase have better processors and more memory. So, but beyond that, again, as long as Fiery API is installed on the Fiery, whether that's an embedded or an external there is absolutely no difference in feature set.
Right.
Can Fiery FreeForm Create do sequential numbers? Not from within the application yet. So for sequential numbers, you would need to create a data source in Excel to have that sequential numbers. One other key benefit of Fiery FreeForm Create, that if you want to create a sequential, something like a sequential number in Excel using a formula, FreeForm Create is actually able to process that formula. So creating a sequential number or anything else that you would use formulas for are supported natively in FreeForm Create. You don't have to flatten the Excel to a CSV file like you would for other applications maybe.
So our next question is, what is the maximum number of recommended records per job?
That's an excellent question. I visited many customers in my long employment with EFI, both in Europe and here in the US. And what I see is that the data set or the record set is often determined by the finishing capabilities, or how many sheets of paper can I put in a particular tray, or can I have in the finisher tray. FreeForm Create does not have a limitation on the number of records. Obviously, the more records you use, you would need a better client system to process that. You will see that the amount of memory used increases as you process more records. But in general, what we see customers do is either have a record set of 1,000 records or 5,000 records, because they can run those in batches, print those in batches, and they can actually physically move them from the engine to their finishing equipment.
And you use double-sided masters.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. There's absolutely no difference in jobs generated by FreeForm Create and regular FreeForm jobs on the Fiery.
In fact, all of the demo files that we showed you today all used double-sided masters.
Yep.
And I think most of the files in our FreeForm kit use double-sided masters.
Yeah, I don't think.
If not, the vast majority of them do.
Yeah.
So it will explain how to set up.
Exactly. Yeah.
To print in
Yeah. So from that aspect, if you've got a double-sided master, it would just be the same as printing any duplex document from the Fiery server. So you add your variable data where you want it on your master, and then when you send it to the Fiery server, you set the same job property settings like duplex or whatever you would want to do that you would with a static job. How do you add the pictures to the Excel file? That's a great question. So it's the one little manual bit of this process, because you do need to add the file names for the images into your Excel file. That may need to be manually, that may be output from some type of database. I'm not sure how you've got things set up. But all you need to do is make sure you've got a link in your file. And again, we've got all of these examples in the FreeForm kit, so you can see how the data sources are formatted. You just need to have the path to the folder that has the images, and then the individual image names that go with each record that you want to use them for. And that's all you need to do. Yep. Not sure where to find this on my Fiery. Well, that's a good question, because FreeForm Create is not actually pre-installed on any Fiery servers. You do need to go get it. You need to either download it through Fiery Software Manager if that's what you're using, or you need to go to efi.com/freeformcreate to download the standalone application.
There was one question above that.
The same.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Is there a text option to wrap text around an image? No, not yet. So we've received feedback about format and doing some more advanced formatting with text. Again, the upcoming version, 1.1 version, will address some of that. Wrapping text around an image is not part of the feature set just yet. but I will happily add it to the backlog for an upcoming. We design catalogs that have a heavier cover than the inside pages. Is there a way to use FreeForm to add addresses to the covers and then print the entire book at once? Absolutely. You can create the design through FreeForm Create, submit it to the Fiery, or use a preset that has a heavy cover predefined in your Fiery preset. Can I lay out a multiple up document so that many records are printed on sheets to be cut later? Yes. As Giselle showed in one of the demos, you can use Fiery Impose to impose these pages. We support multi-record collate, cut and stack, so there probably is a way to organize the layout in such a way that it matches your expectation.
If I need to proof the variable data layout to my client, would I have to go through the entire process and then submit it to your client? So I'm assuming this question is coming from a graphic designer. In this case, yes, you would set up the variable data layout in FreeForm Create, and then you would provide your client the FFP. From there, they would open it in FreeForm Create, and they'd be able to proof all of the records and all of the elements that they'd want to do right from their client. Does FreeForm Create enable my jobs to process faster? I don't see the benefit of not using InDesign. That is a great question. So when you set up mail merge documents using InDesign, what happens is when you export your final PDF with all of the merged documents, you'll see that your master is repeated with every single record. And so that's a lot of different copies of your master that end up in your flattened PDF file. So what that means is that's additional processing overhead that your Fiery server has to go through when it's time to print it. Now, the Fiery server is pretty fast on big files, but there is definitely a much more efficient way to do that. With FreeForm Create, what happens is when you set up your personalized file, FreeForm Create will process the master once, and then it will add the variable information to that master. So you're saving a tremendous amount of processing time. If you actually want to go back and look at a couple of our older World of Fiery webinars, we did a performance analysis using our legacy FreeForm workflow compared to doing mail merges in InDesign and Word, and it's a huge time savings. So you also will have those same time savings with FreeForm Create. That's a great question. I think we're the barcode, the AccuZip one.
Do I have to set up my barcode?
Can you go down, Veronica? Yeah.
Oh, sorry. So the question is, do I have to set up my barcode within my AccuZip file and then submit, or Fiery FreeForm Create generates an intelligent barcode on its own? No, Fiery FreeForm Create does not generate the IMB, the content for the IMB barcode. It is able to consume the content of the IMB barcode. The IMB barcode is formatted in a very specific way. It can either be formatted in a very specific way, or it can be AccuZip is able to also output the unformatted content. But we have actually one of our very early adopters shared this question on EFI communities about a month ago. So we looked into it, and we've created a how-to, an FAQ on EFI communities to explain how to use AccuZip with FreeForm Create. So I would like to invite you, whoever asked the questions, to join EFI communities and look for AccuZip and FreeForm Create.
Lots of good questions here, and they keep coming. So thank you guys for submitting all these questions. Next page,
Does Fiery catch freeform images contained in a VDP job? So the Fiery will cache the freeform static template. So if images are part of the variable template, then Fiery will process that onto the static template. So this is not, FreeForm Create is not a object-based PDF language, it's a page-based PDF language. So the answer probably is no, but the performance is similar or better than using object-based variable data languages.
When using the maximum link feature, can you select multiple data sets to check? For example, first, middle, last at maximum links together rather than checking one at a time. That's a good question. At this point in time, you can only use the filter for individual variable record types, but that's a good idea.
Yes, it's a very good idea. That's already been discussed with the team. Ideally, we would like FreeForm Create to automatically inform you that some of the records or the combination in a particular text box will not match when you process the entire file. So that's something that the team is looking at.
I have Command Workstation 6 with System FS100 Pro. I do not see FreeForm Create to install. Is my system too old? No, your system is not too old. As we mentioned before, FreeForm Create is not pre-installed. You should see this in Fiery Software Manager. You may need to refresh Fiery Software Manager to see it. Otherwise, you can download the standalone version. If for some reason you keep refreshing Fiery Software Manager and you don't see it, just put a note in our group and communities and we'll check on that.
Or download the standalone.
Or download the standalone version, yeah.
Exactly.
If you Google FreeForm Create download, you will get to FreeForm Create webpage.
Perfect.
The download button is great.
Next question, will Fiery FreeForm Create work on an older version of Fiery? First, yes. I cannot update because one of my print engine is not compatible with Command Workstation 5.8.
That means it's probably older than 9R2 in that case.
Yeah.
If the system is really older than System 10, then no, it cannot be used. So I would like to ask that person to send us a note so that we can check if FreeForm Create is supported on that particular engine. And if it's not supported by Command Workstation 6, again, we can also, important to remember, you do not need Command Workstation in order to use Fiery FreeForm Create. So no matter which version of Command Workstation you have, if you're more comfortable, we know there's still some customers who haven't upgraded to Command Workstation 6. Please do. It's much better, faster, etc. But if you don't want to upgrade, you can still use Fiery FreeForm Create.
But you need Command, you need Command Workstation to submit the job.
No, you don't.
Okay.
Everything is done from within Fiery FreeForm.
You don't need Command Workstation.
So the only time you would need Command Workstation is if you want to go in and adjust the job properties of the job after you send it to the Fiery from FreeForm Create. If you use server presets and send it directly to the print queue, you technically don't even need to go into Command Workstation.
You don't.
Yeah. Good point.
Can you use FreeForm before making a booklet in Impose? Absolutely. So you would basically follow the same workflow that we showed with the business card, except you would make a booklet instead of a gang up layout.
Next question. If I have a paragraph where all the words are the same except for a chosen few that are in the middle of the paragraph, can you have the majority of the paragraph in the master and the rest as variable text? I guess that depends on the layout. So definitely if it's a standalone paragraph, if you have like 5 or 6 paragraphs and you know that the variable content is always like one sentence, then you can definitely make the static text part of the static master and add a text box which only has the variable text or the sentence with the variable text.
And another note here about that, so FreeForm Create will actually see, when you see the font list in FreeForm Create, what you're actually seeing is all the fonts that are installed on the client that you're using to connect to FreeForm Create. So if you know the font size and style that you're using for your master, you can use that same font size and style for your variable text box, so all will look seamless.
Yep.
Finally, a product that re-energizes VDP, all the features you need, and a very nice UI, and can be installed on both a PC and Mac. We agree with you. Thank you for that.
Agree
yes,
with you.
We agree.
Watch this space for some other people who also think that.
Yeah.
A question regarding FreeForm Create installation. I need to add a user and password to my Fiery, but configure no longer runs on my Mac browser. Is there a non-Java version or another way to access adding a user or password? Please install Command Workstation 6. That removes the need for the Java-based version of Fiery Configure.
Do we have any more? Looks like we've got a few more questions. Okay.
Question is, does this still store the master images on the Fiery and only rip the variable data? Absolutely, yes. FreeForm Create, as we explained during the presentation, still uses the FreeForm technology that exists on the Fiery. FreeForm Create, we've made it a lot easier, and we've added the ability for FreeForm Create to add data based on Excel sheets, etc. We have set up a user for FreeForm Create and user with passwords that still can't connect to the Fiery. We have no admin password, so do we need to connect using the admin account? All the APIs are correct, and even loading FFC on the Fiery itself has not worked. Please send us a note. We will work with support to see what's going on with your system. From what you've shared, you should be able to send jobs from FreeForm Create to a Fiery if Fiery API is installed and the a user admin or operator has a password assigned.
Yes.
Is there a way to statically place the same variable data across multiple pages? Yes, you can drag and drop the same variable text, images, or barcode to different pages. I know that in this example we showed the QR barcode, for instance, on the second page, but you can also add that same barcode to the last page or the fourth page.
Actually, in the postcard file that I showed, if you look at the version that's actually included in FreeForm Create, you'll find that fields are repeated on the front and back of the postcard. So you can definitely add the same field multiple times.
Yeah. I have about 200 employees in one Excel. Can I choose to print row 34 from the spreadsheet, or can the clean sheet only contain the employees or employees from whom I'm making a business card?
Well, let's see. Out of FreeForm Create, you don't have a way to choose which records you send to the Fiery. However, what you can do is once your file gets into the Fiery, you can choose to only print certain records, record 34, from there.
Yeah. So you either clean up, have a clean Excel with just the records that you want to print, or once you've submitted the file through FreeForm Create, open your properties and select the records that you want to use.
And we have two more.
Okay.
And we're done.
Okay. On the business cards, do crop marks show up on the document from FreeForm?
Yeah.
So if they're in your master, they do. Otherwise, you would see them when you brought them into the Fiery and you used a program such as Impose where you can add the crop marks.
Yep.
And the client has to have FreeForm Create to view my proofs. Yes, they have to have FreeForm Create. The only way to open an FFP file is through the FreeForm Create client. Great questions.
Great.
Really great questions. Thank you for the active discussion, everybody.
Yes, and these are all the questions, I think. If we haven't answered your question, I think we answer all of them, but let us know. Remember, EFI Communities is a great resource. Hans and Giselle check those frequently, so you have their word firsthand. Thank you all for joining us today again. We'll share the recording, the presentation, and all the other great resources. It has been a pleasure to have you guys today.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.